If you have a good piece of real estate, someone's always going to want it. If you have a lousy piece of real estate, you're going to be stuck. You're in at the front end, and when the wave is rolling, everything's great. And if it hits the beach too hard, it shakes you off and kind of dusts yourself off and find another wave. I beat out Chipotle, I beat out Starbucks, whatever. And they've got much deeper pockets. They're much better credit. You got to be nimble. You got to go dig it out of the corner, Key. You got to dig it out of the corner.
You can't AI land. You can't tech land. Do you think you're going to do it like sitting behind a computer all the time? Good luck. It's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
Well, welcome back to the show with me, Guy Coffey, Franchise Business Real Talk, with my guest, Edgar Cepuritis. He's with Cafe Zupas. He's a real estate professional. He's been at it for a long time, and we're looking forward to learning some things about real estate site selection, maybe negotiation, that all of us can learn from someone that's been in the trenches and on the front lines for a long time and has done really well. So thanks for being on the show, Edgar.
No, hey, my pleasure.
Well, I know you're with Cafe Zupas. Tell us a little bit about that and then what you do for them, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. So Cafe Zupas, Salt Lake-based restaurant company. We're in the fast casual category, in the soup, salad, sandwich arena. The big competitors for us would probably be looking at Panera or Corner Bakery. I think the big difference for us is we have a scratch kitchen. We make all of our soups, our salad dressings in-house, no commissary, no microwaves. We're not warming things up. It's made fresh every day. Our produce gets shipped in every day. So it comes in as whole tomatoes or heads of lettuce, and we wash and chop. Again, nothing's processed for us. We do it ourselves.
Wow.
Big difference in the quality of food. Price point is the same, if not a little bit less than Corner Bakery and Panera. Much more modern spin on it. It's kind of where I think it's obviously Corner Bakery's having their troubles, but where Panera would love to shift, but with it. They've done a great job, but with as many units as they have, it's tough to turn those big ships.
Right. And so how many do you guys have right now? And in how many states are you in?
We have 79 restaurants open. Right now we'll have 81 by the end of the year. We're in 7 states. Again, we're based in Utah and Salt Lake. But, so I don't know, I think we have 32 in the, Salt Lake, Ogden, Provo, MSA, and, then Phoenix, Las Vegas, Boise, Minneapolis, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Ohio.
Okay. Yeah. I was checking out the site, and I was going down to Arizona sometime soon. And I was like, where are they down there? Because I'm going to Arizona before I'm going to Utah.
Yeah. We've got 12 restaurants in the Phoenix market. So yeah. Let me know when you're going. I'll point you in the right direction for it.
Okay.
Latest and greatest are.
Great. To that end, have you been with them from the start, or from like what point to what point? And then tell us about your exact role in the organization.
Sure. So I've been with Cafe Zupas for about 10 and a half years at store 24. We just opened 24 when I got there. So early on in the system. So it's been a great ride. It's ever evolving. We've got 2 owners that are extremely creative. They actually came out of the tech world. So we're, very technology forward, which gives us an advantage too, is kind of the market shifting and to that end, with what the customers want. In my role is I am responsible for all the new store development. I oversee our construction team. We have a VP of construction that manages that process. But at the end of the day, I'm responsible for identifying the real estate, negotiating the deals, kind of putting the overall market plans together prior to identifying the real estate, and then kind of getting it through the entitlement process. We have quite a few freestanding drive-through units, which we kind of moved towards in the post-COVID era, and so that has got added a lengthy entitlement process, as you can imagine, going through all the city hearings and meetings, and then just kind of helping put out fires for our construction team. As they arise, either with the city or with the landlord, on conflicts of, what was promised, what was supposed to be there, and
sure,
things of that nature.
Do you have your own construction team as well then?
We do.
Wow.
We have VP of construction and 2 project managers.
Okay.
We have an in-house designer that kind of straddles the fence between marketing and store design. And then we have outside consultants from an architectural and engineering standpoint.
That's pretty rare. I would say I don't know when the tipping point is, but I would think 80 units. I don't think a lot of even QSR has their own in-house real estate or construction at 80. Do I have that right or no?
I'm not sure because I joined Potbelly way back when at 6, and we had construction managers.
Okay.
We had a chief development officer that kind of would oversee the construction, so we did not have a VP of construction at the time.
Okay.
But our VP of construction's been there 14 years, so he was outside building them as a contractor, and they brought him inside. Maybe 2 years, 3 years ahead of me. But our projects, our ground ups, are all said and under $3 million. So it is an expensive project. It's a complicated project. So, that is a resource internally that you want to be able to manage. Again, that's a good question. I'm thinking back. I mean, I was at Einstein Bagel and Boston Chicken back in the late 90s. And, obviously we're a much bigger group then, but even our area development group, we had in-house construction. I was at Noodles and Company for 4 years through their IPO. We had 400 units at the time. Actually, we had less than that when we started, but we had in-house construction. So I guess everywhere I've ever been, we've had in-house construction. So
yeah, okay, that's interesting. Let me take a step back. How did you so you were at real estate? Like most people think someone gets into real estate, they're going commercial or residential. Not necessarily in this sector. How did you end up in this with a specialization in this?
In college, I did an internship. I majored in regional development, which is, kind of an urban planning type degree,
Sure.
University of Arizona. And I did an internship with a shopping center developer. Actually, it was my hockey coach's company, his wife's company. She's worked
Everything
there. So
comes back to hockey.
everything comes back to hockey, Guy.
Yeah.
That's how life works around here. I really enjoyed that internship. It kind of opened my eyes. I mean, I don't know. You look back as a kid in high school and college, and we all ate out. We all went to Blockbuster, pick your store back in the late 80s, early 90s. I've never thought about, hey, maybe there's somebody's job is to identify that real estate, negotiate those deals, and build those stores over there. I mean, it never even crossed my mind.
No.
So I don't know how they got there. They're just there.
Right.
So then out of college, 91, the real estate market was freaking in the toilet. It was horrible. So I got a job with a little boutique restaurant real estate brokerage firm in Chicago. Spent some time there, spent some time on the brokerage side, a little bit on the landlord side for a big institution, which, I need to be in a little bit more entrepreneurial environment than working for giant institutions that I struggled with the decision making and kind of the whole mindset in that group. And then, I met a guy that, we just hit it off, and he was looking to grow their real estate team at Einstein Bagels. And, that's when they were with Boston Market. And, so I joined them, and I've been on the restaurant side ever since. I mean, I guess I started in the restaurant side too, but yeah, I mean, it's been, 91, it's 23 years. It's frightening.
Right. That was in Golden, right? Wasn't Einstein's based in Golden?
They were.
Yeah.
We were in Chicago, and they had a different kind of setup. We were all in FADs, what they called it, financed area developers. It was kind of a franchise situation, but they really acted more as the bank, and we would run and operate and develop the restaurants. And then they had a goal to buy them back based on some level of media efficiency. This is again back in the 90s. So it's, multiples slower for, you have so many units to get to print, so many units to get to radio, so many units to get to TV. And the thought process being, if you pump money into those different media outlets from an advertising standpoint, there's kind of a multiple that you should see your revenue grow. And so, we were kind of tasked to grow our area, which included most of the Midwest down to Texas. And then they would fund our development, and then they would buy us back at some less, when we get to that level of media efficiency. The whole Boston Chicken thing kind of imploded a little bit, and then we kind of followed. The model was frowned upon, down the road, and especially when Boston Chicken went public, and that thing kind of imploded, and it's kind of the way it goes. On the real estate side, you're kind of the hired gun, right? You're in at the front end, and when the wave is rolling, everything's great. And if it hits the beach too hard, it shakes you off, and you kind of dust yourself off and find another wave. But
So when you're looking now with Cafe Zupa, you said that you're also on the market perspective, probably looking at, what are the demos that we do well in,
Mhm.
what's available there? Can we get out ahead of maybe some development, be early? So maybe it's a little less expensive or something like that. I don't know if that's the case, but
No,
how are you? No, well, no construction's expensive, inexpensive right now, right? Or anything. What are you seeing out there, and like what are you looking at in terms of markets for, like, say, the nice thing also about being internal is you're not a hired gun. You're looking at, hey, like, what's going to happen in 5 years? Where do we want to be?
and I'll go back to the Boston Chicken Einstein days, and those guys all came out of the blockbuster boom and development. Really super talented real estate development people within that whole organization. And kind of fortunate to be associated with them. And there's a huge network of us around the country with different brands that kind of came out of that school of thought. And it was really new to me, and it's the first time that somebody really took me under their wing and mentored me. And there's no right way to do this, right? But a really effective way to do it, which is, you go into the market, pick your town, it doesn't matter. It's, Indianapolis. And, how do we maximize, how many Einsteins do we want? And we had kind of a metric of, we want one per 100,000 people. So, Indy's, 120 or 1,200,000 at the time, but I don't remember exactly. But so you're looking at 12 restaurants, to reach, main full build out for us
Sure.
in Indy. And so where do we want those 12 restaurants located? I mean, if you just go in and say, I want to build restaurants or any concept in Indy, and you do one deal without any thought of how the whole market's going to lay out, you could put one where you should have two. Or, you'll have one good store, great store, but, you're right on the edge of two really good trade areas. And, you've got competitors on each side of you that are doing great. And so you have to look at it as the whole.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the 12 or 15 sites, intersections I want, down to the intersection, down to the real estate. We had market plans that were intersection and then the top four pieces of real estate. And, 1 to 15, and you're in ranked ABC or 1, 2, 3, doesn't really matter. And so grouped them in the thirds and said, all right, here's my top 5 sites in Indy. We're going to do 2 deals this year. They have to fall within, at least the first one's got to fall within the top 5. And we want the best real estate. And bad real estate is not cheap enough. I mean, it does not matter how cheap a bad piece of real estate is. If you fail, you will never know, was it the real estate? Was it the concept? Was it the operation? What was the flaw? But if you put it in the best piece of real estate for that brand, okay, let's check real estate off the box. That's not the issue. Maybe there's some co-tenancy, maybe whatever the reason that, and what's your exit strategy if your doesn't work, right? If you have a good piece of real estate, someone's always going to want it. If you have a lousy piece of real estate, I mean, you're going to be stuck. I mean, and we'll get into this later, but you cannot settle, paying an extra $1 a foot is not what's going to make you win or lose. But, taking that cheaper deal could make you lose.
That was going to be one of my questions later on. So you took one of my questions away, but you're very emphatic about it.
But so you kind of lay out the market plan, and then so you're in the top 5 intersections. You've got 4 sites at each intersection. You're just knocking on doors. There's there's 2 phone calls: the landlord and the tenant. Is a landlord happy with that tenant? When's the lease expire? Call the tenant. You've got a lease, but how you doing?
Really,
maybe
you call tenants?
Oh God, every day, every
Really?
single day. I mean,
Okay.
the number of deals I've done in my career where I go and there's a for lease sign in the window, 0. I mean,
really?
You will not, for a good piece of real estate. And again, we're in the quick service food business. That's where I've been my whole career. It is about top of mind. You need to be front and center. You need to have the best piece of real estate, or minimally outposition your competitors. And in that arena, I put in Chipotle, Sweet Greens, pick your fast casual guy. It doesn't matter. I don't, if they're easier to get into, that's an advantage, right? I mean, sometimes they're looking for Cafe Zupas, sometimes they're looking for Chipotle, so it doesn't matter. But more often than not, it's, you're flying down the road like, oh, I really want a sandwich. Boom. I'm just, easy in, easy out. That's critical. So we have to have the best real estate. And, listen, we've all made mistakes with that, but there's a lot of times when you do a deal and, it takes a while to get things built, and, you get phone calls from, your peers, your buddies in the business, like, the hell did you get that site? And those are the best phone calls you can ever get, right? Because it just validates, all right, I beat out Chipotle, I beat out Starbucks, whatever, and they've got much deeper pockets. They're much, better credit. But, it's, you got to be nimble. You got to go dig it out of the corner, Guy. You got to dig it out of the corner.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're slightly competitive. Maybe that's another reason for your luck. I experienced your competitiveness today on DU's Magnus Arena, so I know for a fact. I still have a stick mark across my back. No, I'm kidding. But
I'll show you a stick mark.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Just wait.
I did have a question, and it's probably way too specific for this point in time. But when I was preparing for this, I was thinking about a specific location that we had, and it was in a great center, super high traffic, and our franchisee location was in the corner of an L.
The crotch, we like to call it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think I know the answer to your question. I think I know what you're going to answer is like, even with all those, the co-tenants that are rocking and rolling, like you're sitting in this like little dark spot in the middle in the corner there. And is that the kiss of death?
I mean, it depends on the use, obviously, but
Sure.
yeah, I mean, you need to be visible, and in that business, I imagine, access to parking right in front of you is important. Yeah. And, so when you get into those, corner spaces, it's just really tough to get close proximity with parking. And, you're not getting that much walking traffic. You want to be up on the street, in a multi-tenant building, or you want to be at least in a position where, I imagine in the franchise business, you're looking at, grocery stores are good co-tenants. You're not going to the grocery store and then the nail salon necessarily, but, you're at the grocery store 3 days a week, and I want to be able to see it. Hey, when I need it, I know where it is. And so co-tenancy is huge. Visibility is massive. So your sign's got to be visible. We have, with all the brands I've been, a high degree of branding that we want to try to impact on the exterior of these buildings. Even in a shopping center, we take very few inline deals. I mean, I'll take end caps or freestanding buildings, but I mean, the number of inline deals, again, few and far between.
Really? Okay. That's interesting.
And so kind of going back to the market piece again, this is in the persistence. So, I was at Potbelly for, I don't know, 8 years maybe. I was at Einstein for 4 years before that. Mm-hmm. And there's a donut shop in Detroit, in Dearborn, Michigan, right on the main drag. Cool building. And Potbelly, if you're familiar with it, it's kind of an antique themed sandwich joint. And I loved it. I mean, I think it's, slipped a little bit, but I hope it's coming back because I still love that brand. Banged down the door for Einstein Bagels in the Detroit market for the 4 years I was there. At Potbelly, we're driving by that store one day, and I look at my broker and I'm like, hey, we need to go talk to that guy again. So he and I walk in there, talk to the guy, and he knew us because we'd banged on the door for 4 years prior to that. And we didn't get to Detroit with Potbelly for probably 4 or 5 years into my Potbelly days. So this is almost 10 years later. And we walk in, the guy's like, oh yeah, I remember you guys with Einstein. I'm like, yeah, I'm with Potbelly now. I'd love to talk to you. And he's like, today's the right day. He goes, I've been talking to my partner, and, this is a tough business. We'd love to go back up to Traverse City where we have a place and live there full time and just collect a rent check. I'm your guy. And so we sat down there, banged out a deal, and my broker in Detroit, goes to his office, and he's a senior guy. He goes, this is why you knock on doors. Because we've been looking at this deal for 10 years.
Yeah.
and different brands, and
Right.
but you can never take the market knowledge away from you.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I've done a ton of work in a lot of really good markets, and doing the market plans, you have to get to the granular level. So
Okay.
when I get phone calls all the time from guys, hey, if you ever think, are you happy at Zupas? We'd love to talk to you about coming over to Cava or Sweet Green or whatever.
Right.
Because the market knowledge cannot be taken away,
Right. Yeah. And the relationships
and the
and
relationships in those
yeah,
markets. Yeah.
people in franchising and real estate, development, like you tend to know, like I was talking to a guy that owns a franchise system down in Florida. And I told him I was in Denver, we're looking at, buying into the system. And he goes, yeah, like, North Cherry Creek, Park Meadows, those would be good areas. And I'm like, oh, you're familiar with Denver? He's like, no, I just been in real estate a really long time. Like you get to know like the best places in every city, don't you? Like you
Oh
could
yeah.
probably tell me like where to go in Philly, or you could tell me where to go in Sacramento, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe not Sacramento, but Philly. I've done
Okay.
work in Philly, nothing in Sacramento. But it's funny because my parents were in DC once, and they're going to a party, and I get a call and like, hey, we're going to this party, and we don't have any wine. You really want to pick up a bottle of wine? Any ideas? I'm like, well, where are you? And they told me where they were. I'm like, which is right on Rockville Pike in Rockville, Maryland. I'm like, oh, if you go up to this intersection, there's a shopping center with Best Buy. There's a liquor store in that shopping center. And they're like, oh, hey, thanks. I'm like, and my wife's like, what was that? He goes, oh, my parents were looking for a liquor store in DC. And that was pre-Google. I mean, this is back when we dotted maps with those little freaking dots.
Right.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, tell me, if since we're talking about tech, well, you mentioned Google, and you've been in this game for a long time. Where's it all going with you know, like getting to know a market? How much easier is it to get to know a market, from a data perspective? And, is there anything that's coming down the pike where it's like, oh, this is, we're still dealing with land. Sorry, I'm answering my own question. We're still dealing with land. like you can't AI land, you can't tech land, but you could maybe. I just remember I was down in Phoenix, the Phoenix area, and I was going on way out west, like towards Goodyear. And this is a few years ago. And in the middle of nothing, there was a Lifetime Fitness, 110,000 square foot.
Well, I know exactly where it is.
Yeah, you know it. There was nothing around it, and I
Oh,
was back there.
wait till you go back there.
Right. And I was like, how did Brom, Cardi,
Yeah.
like, how did he know that was going on there? Is there any areas like that? I mean, you probably don't want to give it away.
I mean, well, no, I mean, so from our standpoint, you look at the grocery stores and guys like Lifetime. I mean, and maybe less Lifetime than the grocery stores. The grocery stores are out there land banking dirt, 10, 15 years out. I mean, if you go out, I can't even, west of Goodyear. I mean, we just did a deal in Buckeye, which is west of Goodyear. And we've got two deals in a Surprise, so we're past Goodyear. It has grown beyond that. It's unbelievable. It's growing south of there. But anyway, grocery stores will buy, kind of guess, not guess, but do some, decision logic on, where we can buy these big tracts of land. And, it's a lot cheaper. Their margins are tough. They can't go in and buy a pad at Cherry Creek, right? I mean, those economics don't make sense for them. But if they can go buy, 30 acres at, $2-3 a foot, they'll keep when the market eventually catches up, they will keep their 10-acre pad. They will sell off the peripheral stuff to a developer that will build a shopping center. And so they're going to be in the dirt for nothing. And so they have dirt. Every grocery store chain has got dirt all on the edges of every market that they're in, and hoping that, they're in the path of growth before their competitors are. But, it's based off of, where the road systems go and what do the highways look like, so they're making educated bets on this stuff, but they are out there. I mean, I can't do that. I mean, we don't have the capital to start, buying stuff out there. And I need to open, at max volume. And, those guys, Panda's a good example. Panda does a bunch of stuff on the fringes they'll always be first. If you go out in the edge and you see a new development, inevitably there's going to be a panda there. Now, they love to buy their real estate. They have an exceptionally wealthy founder who is a real estate, developer, and he'll buy it and then kind of lease it back to the company. So he owns a lot of their real estate that they actually operate out of. Not all of it. Sometimes people won't sell, and they still want the best real estate in the trade areas too. So they'll lease spaces and in addition to just buying their own. But
wow.
Yeah, and as far as tools go, there's all these the Buxtons and the a couple others that are out there.
Right.
And they have really interesting data. There's a restaurant trends that's got restaurant volumes that aren't very accurate. They've got a lot of the cell phone data, and I'm no expert at that, but my understanding is they really they take a very small percentage of that population and they just try to extrapolate into traffic. And so I'm not a huge fan of that. And we had one of those companies I don't remember what it's called, but they kind of outline your building with geocode our buildings, and then they tracked the data, and they came back to us with here's kind of how your revenue should line up. And I'm like, nope.
Not even close.
No. Okay. I mean, somewhere on it, but they ranked them, I think, 1 to 40 at the time, and maybe they had, I mean, they didn't have our top one at the top.
Okay.
And they had some poor performers under,
Yeah.
But,
yeah. So not 100% reliable.
Not 100%.
Right.
Google Earth or Maps and Street View is fantastic to kind of, get quick, at least introductions to kind of the executive guys.
Right.
So I can, I don't have to wait for them to go to Phoenix. I mean, there's no benefit of doing market plans, but, so you can at least refresh their memory on a piece of real estate that we're looking at. I just got the phone on a site that we were at the kind of cracked the door open on in Las Vegas, and, had a 5-minute conversation, they're on their phones and, Google Maps, like, oh yeah, no, I love that. And so, just to kind of refresh their memory, but, I mean, nothing beats driving in the car, and you need, I would tell you need a broker, to get to local knowledge. Everyone's talked about, well, the fees in the deal anyway. If there's a landlord broker, there's a commission agreement on the listing side. And if you have a tenant broker, that commission's split.
Yeah.
And depends who you are. I mean, the Chipotle guys, the Starbucks guys probably can leverage out a little bit more money, but Starbucks doesn't. I mean, that's fine.
Right.
They get and on top of that, if you're using I would go with, I'd love a junior guy that was hungry, but that works with the guy that's doing the Starbucks or doing the Chipotle, so that I know what's going on. If you go out on your own, or and I'll say this as positively as I can, your best friend's partner is a realtor. So
residential.
Yeah, exactly. they're gonna negotiate the deal for you. Whoa, that's not a good idea.
Right.
They do not know what's coming up. They do not know, what the best opportunities are, and they don't know what the actual economics are of these deals. The Starbucks guy, the Chipotle guy, anybody that's doing tenant work in whatever market you're in, they know, and they may not want to deal with a one-off, a single unit franchisee, but their junior guy will, and so they're trying to get that person trained and have them make a little bit of money. So I always loved going to junior guys, and I could drive them hard. I can lean on the senior guy, for knowledge and meetings and whatever.
That's really interesting, because one of the challenges we had when we had Frenchies was, like, we're in general 1,500 square feet, right? Mm-hmm. And so we'd go with a national company in a market or something like that, and inevitably we would get the junior guy or the junior gal, and they weren't really good at their jobs yet, right? But one of the things that we could have said is like who are you working with at the firm to learn all this stuff? Like I'm not going to make you look bad or anything like that by making them be at every meeting or anything like that, but I'd like to know who you're working with.
It's a fair question. They've got no challenge, answering that stuff for you. So
yeah, to be honest, I never did that. I just be like, oh my gosh, like,
but
we're not getting good service.
I have never, in all of the years worked with a national network of brokers ever.
Really? Okay.
Because I want the best person in that market for me. And that may not be the best person for you, right? If it's somebody that I can get along with, somebody that believes kind of in the way that we're doing it, the way that we're attacking it, was willing to knock on doors. So if you go with the big chain links or X team or whatever, CB across the country, you may have a great broker in Denver, but your guy in Dallas is a total piece of crap. And you're stuck with them because you've got this network agreement. Just, get referrals, from your great guy in Denver. I'm sure, he's got a guy or gal in Dallas that they know that's really good, or call me. I've got brokers all over the country.
I bet you do.
that I can call the phone, pick it up. Made a lot of deals, made people a lot of money.
Right.
So and those relationships are invaluable. I can't be in 7 markets every day. Right. I'm on the phone with them every week, but they're in the trenches. They know where the new developments are going. Anytime I go to Phoenix, I've got meetings set up with the developers that are, just, hey, what's going on? We'll go have a few beers and right. More of a social thing. But hey, this is what I'm looking for. It's like, hey, I'm working on the center over here. That might be good for you in a couple of years. Great. Just kind of keep those relationships going. And who knows, I might, be somewhere else and doing deals in Phoenix for somebody else. And that relationship is still there. That development is still there, and it might be the right fit for me then.
It's interesting with all the technology and, all the growth and all this, like you're talking about data, market analysis. I love it when it comes back to but it's really also about like the industry knowledge you have in your head, like the experiences that have formed who you are and how you're going to move forward, and the people and conversations. It's really you can't, like in this business or small business or entrepreneurship, if you think you're going to do it like sitting behind a computer all the time, good luck. It's not going to work.
It's not going to work. It's especially not going to work if you're young in this business, because you don't know anybody, and you send emails to somebody who may or may not respond to it. Yeah. It drives me nuts. And I obviously I'm old like you.
Yeah.
And
same boat.
It's pick the phone up, make a phone call. Call the guy. Do not email him. Call him. Let's go meet. Let's go have a coffee. Face to face, it's really hard to push a guy off. I mean, some people can do it. I can't. It's uncomfortable to, but I'll finish my coffee with you. I might not call you afterwards, but
right, exactly.
I got to sit there for half an hour.
Right, and maybe it comes into something, right?
Yeah, right. You never know.
Right. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective on development and leases and locations. There is some gold nuggets in here that I think if someone listened to it that's thinking about getting into something, they might not make some mistakes, and they might have more conversations, and who knows, maybe someone picks up the phone and says like, hey, Edgar, I saw you on Franchise Business Real Talk. Could you spend 10 minutes with me? Who knows?
I'm happy to do it. I mean, it's a big decision in anyone's business is finding the right site. I mean, it can absolutely make or break it. Totally. And again, I'm not going to say pay whatever it takes, but
money well spent.
It's money well spent to get the best piece of real estate. The other thing, you look at some of these people that just absolutely grind landlords to the final penny. It is a 10 to 20 year relationship. I promise you that landlord will get that penny back times 100 because you treated them like poorly. Be fair, understand what their needs are, make them understand what your needs are. There's no secrets in this, right? I mean, no one's going to outsmart me. I'm not going to outsmart anybody else, but let's find a path to the end, and make sure that he feels or she feels, like they're treated fairly. So, because inevitably you're going to have an issue with your lease, with your building, and you want to make that phone call, and you want them to answer, and you want them to respond. And if you were an ass, guess what? Right. That response is not going to be as quick as if you were a great guy in the conversation.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think it's like, I know you're not in franchising, but it's also sometimes franchisees, which I'm one of them, will kind of dehumanize the franchisor, and they're like, oh, they put this fee on us to like push us when we're down. And I think a lot of people have that same impression of landlords. It's like, like I feel okay trying to, to nickel and dime them or, push them as far as I can, because in the end they always win and they're the king, and I'm getting a little blood from them or something like that. And you're right. Like, whether you believe that or not, you got a 10-year relationship at the very least, most likely. It really helps if, the property manager is going to come and go, probably. That's been my experience. But if they're like, when that property manager goes to the next level up and they're like, hey, Anytime Fitness and Steamboat's got a problem with, a leaky, ceiling or something like that, they're like, like, take care of them. They pay on time. They don't push back on everything.
Oh, he's a great guy. He's really fair.
Yeah. As opposed to like, oh my gosh, they've been complaining about virtually everything, So that's great advice. Well, Edgar, thank you so much for your time on a Friday afternoon. And
my pleasure.
I'll see you next Friday on the ice, I hope.
Yes, sir. Yes, you will.
All right.
Have a good one.
Take care.